out of the managers with the same tire compound as us, we were able to finish quickest, unlike the previous races where we are the second or third. And this race we finished about where we expected, but previously we were 30th place or so, and we're still quite close to top 20, and we're about a minute and 10 seconds off from 8th place, which is about the same as the start of the season. The person with the same tire compound as us did a one-stop strategy and it didn't suit the track. That's why they finished slower than us this race. You can see our driver didn't start the race with max stamina because we have optimized our risk to a high risk, and we know that some of the tracks will be able to recover to 100% and some won't, and I think we already have the good balance in the stamina drain. And our driver also made 2 mistakes in the race, which is usual of his performance. And recently, because our qualifying is quite poor, I think we're losing about 50,000 to 100,000 in revenue. 90,000 is a bit low compared to what we see previously in the other groups when we finish at the top of the standings. We qualified at the back of the grid, which is usually what we do, because our driver has a bit less experience stats compared to others, but we know that he does better in the race. You can see quite a bit of the grid opted to do a 3 pit stop strategy. That's why we qualified at the back of the grid. We also going to train our driver again to reduce the weight. And we saw that we gained 1 car performance points in each category after the points came through. And we also had a technical director at that time, and the conversion ratio is quite low. Previously we gained about 2 or 3 points, but now we only gained 1 point. So I don't think it's worth to hire another one for only a race or a few to try and make this conversion a bit higher for the current points we have. We also updated our car parts, and previously we had about 90 in each category, and we gained a few points because we upgraded the engine and the wings, which make the most contribution for the car performance. When we look at the calculator tool, we saw that a lot of parts needed to be changed, and we decided to upgrade the wings and the engine because we don't want to lose too much performance, and the few tracks coming up is quite dependent on the car. And to compensate for this, we downgraded the underbody, side pods and the brakes to try and save money where we don't need it, because these has minor effect in the car performance, so we can downgrade it without much penalty. You can see the first few tracks are highly dependent on the car power, and we were at Irungudaco, and it's a bit less car performance dependent. And then for the few upcoming races, it's going to be engine dependent again and mildly handling dependent. And then after that, it's not too much car performance dependent anymore. We only really need to get a bit of handling and acceleration. And because the wings also affect, I think, power minorly and acceleration, that's why we decided to upgrade all of those parts, because we're not only going to be using it in this race but also the upcoming 3 races or so, and it's going to be important to be quick and gain the extra revenue for finishing quicker, and it'll pay off the car part. After the car performance points came in and we updated our car, we were at about 28th place or so in the performance. And then I think for this race a few people downgraded a bit, and when I qualified and finished the race setup early, I think we're about 5th place or so. So a few points in the car performance moved us up the car performance leaderboard a lot. When we look at the driver, there's a huge gap between us and others. Obviously we kept our driver from the previous lower group, and his stats aren't really that good compared to the other ones because it wasn't cherry picked within the 135 higher overall. But when we looked at the calculator too and the driver market, there's not really any better options, and it was only about 50 concentration points more compared to what we can get, and we already extended his contract in last season, so we were going to have to pay a lot of money to actually get rid of our driver at the start of season. I still think our driver is quite fast because when we used our calculator tool to check the stats, we saw that a driver had a ranking of 722 and the best we can get was 799, and if we exclude the cherry picked one, most are around 750. We also went a bit light on our testing because we anticipate that we have to upgrade the car a lot to try and score points and stay in the group, and testing mid and end of the season wouldn't really help much to achieve a short-term goal. And even with the relatively low testing laps, we're at the top of the leaderboard in the amount of testing we've done. When we look at the track we're going to do, it's normal for overtaking difficulty, and the past results showed that only a 2 pit stop was optimum, but other strategies can potentially work, and our calculator showed a coefficient of 1.4, which aligns with the 1.44 for the 2 pit stop strategy. So we chose the 2 pit stop, and we found out we can use soft tires, and we decided to do 21, 19 and 20 laps, and we would see our driver do 21, 19 and 18 laps. We need to account for the 2 extra laps at the end, and the average laps was 20, so about plus minus 1 or 2 laps is optimum because it's normal for overtaking. We want to have equal fuel to have the best raw performance instead of a strategy trying to not lose time during overtaking. And we also entered the tire temperature from the GPRO website, and we calculated the setup for the car. And you can see, since the temperature is a bit higher, about 28 or so, we're going to do a lot better in this race because our tire optimum temperature is 37, and majority of the grid with the Yokohama and the Dunlop tires have the temperature of 21-27. So we're expecting to potentially do a bit better this race. But when we looked at the qualifying results, our qualifying time isn't really that much better than previous. It's minorly better, about 0.5 to a second, but not the amount I was expecting from having a higher temperature. Previously we thought the most important thing is to have tires that suit the track temperature, and the average temperature is going to be about 20 or so, but apparently the effect is a bit less than I thought, and our race results at the back of the grid is more like our driver was slow and our car is also too slow, instead of we thought the tires weren't at the optimum temperature, which was what we thought. But when we go to the qualifying time of all other managers, we saw that a similar gap, 4 and 5 seconds, similar to previous, but we're about the bottom 10% instead of the bottom 5% or so, and out of all qualified managers. We found the car setup for the race, and we did the qualifying as we usually do, and we also did Q2 and entered the fuel required for the race. And for the race setup, obviously we entered the fuel load and the setup for my own calculated tool, which accounts for also the car wear during the race and the temperature difference between qualifying, where we found the setup, and the actual race. And we can see the car wear is a bit low. In previous races, some parts have 30 to 40 wear. This track, most of the parts are 15 and 25 wear. That's why after the calculation, there wasn't much change in the required to achieve the wear compensation. For the sponsors, we saw that all of our sponsors dropped a bar or two in the satisfaction, but we actually finished a bit better this race compared to our very poor results at the start of the season. So it doesn't really make sense to me sometimes where the progress and the things are going. And after we upgraded our facilities, we are not necessarily that much quicker than others in negotiating with a new sponsor. And I still think previously we saw the progress was about 10% higher than others, but we're still 10% higher. And when I mentioned tire temperature has quite a bit of effect on the car performance, and it's better to choose the average temperature, which most tracks are, which is the 20-degree tires. It will give us consistent performance throughout the season, but we won't really have those moments where only us have the optimum tire temperature and we can score points. So I think this being able to have the correct temperature and better performance than others is important for staying in the pro group and not de-promoting. But if we had a faster car, I think it's better to have performance throughout the entire season, because you can always have more revenue and quickly upgrade our car. But I think the most important thing is to look at the tire performance and the durability and the dry. We know the temperature is important, a bit more important than the performance bar, but the overall effect, I think it's a bit less than what I anticipated at the start of the season. We thought if we have high performance in the tires, it will make massive difference and we might be a minute or 2 minutes quicker, but currently it looks like we're only on average 30 seconds slower or quicker or so for having the higher performance tires.